Jesse Chason with Lisa Blanchard as the host of Airing Addiction.
I share often my journey started on this campus. Got sober as a client here, just like you.
I really do see phenomenal change.
Always hope. I've seen situations that on the surface look impossible become possible.
Doing this podcast is to share those recovery stories, be honest about what the challenges are and have some real conversations, but kind of share that out on the airwaves.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Airing Addiction. We are coming to you live at the tail end of August, at the tail end of the summer. I know. It's been a very eventful summer, but all good things must come to an end, and there's plenty of good about fall and warm days and cool nights. And I know personally I'm looking forward to a lot of fun recovery-centered events around this fall. And I know I say it to you every episode, Lisa, but I truly am excited for this conversation, for this time today. And before you introduce the guests, I'll just say that I'm super excited because I had to miss last month's episode. So I feel like I'm coming back and it's good to be back. So very grateful to do this and hear so many powerful stories. And with that, Lisa, who do we have today?
Thanks so much, Jesse. We missed you last episode, so we're glad to have you back today. And so, I'm also, really looking forward to our conversation today. So those of you who may have been listening to our podcast for a while or maybe in the recovery world know that September is Recovery Month, and we celebrate recovery in Recovery Month. We celebrate at Airing Addiction by doing weekly episodes, which we're currently planning for you all now. But this opportunity here at the end of August is different, right? So we take a bit of a pause and honor those that we have lost to the disease of addiction for overdose awareness. And so that's what today's episode is here to do. And we're really honored to have Aileen Lovejoy with us. And so Aileen is the mom of a son who suffered with the disease of addiction for over 20 years. And she lost him in 2013. And I will let her share more of that story. But she really has taken her pain and turned it into purpose. She co-facilitates the Halo 18 Grief Group in Worcester, volunteers as a grief group leader at the Carriage House. She's a peer grief support specialist and ally, and really does quite a bit of advocacy in this space. And so we are really honored to have you on, Aileen. And with that, I'll let you share with us, a little bit about you and your son's story.
Thank you, Lisa and Jesse. And thanks for inviting me to be part of this podcast and share this message. Because sharing Francis' story, I think I always say when I share his story that if it helps one person and impacts one person, then his life and his passing has made a difference. And that's so important to me. I could get emotional, and I always say that right up front, but everyone should know I'm okay with that. It happens, it comes and goes. This journey that I'm on ebbs and flows, and I say that during some of our meetings as well, because that's, the love that I have for my son, which will never go away. As you mentioned, Francis did struggle. Francis passed at 41 years old. It was 2 days after his 41st birthday. He celebrated on a Friday, and on Sunday he called me in the morning, which happened to be Mother's Day. I always say there's not a good day to pass, but Mother's Day he called me, and we were making plans to have dinner together, in the coming days. He was at that time not living here. He was out on the streets or wherever he lived, I'm not sure, somewhere in Worcester. And he called, and, our last words to each other were, "I love you." And I cherish that forever. It was later that night that I got the call from UMass Hospital that my son was there and he was gone. I, of course, was devastated, but I'll go back to, he did struggle, as you just mentioned in my bio. I indicate that he struggled for over 2 decades. He started using when he was a young teenager. I believe it started with probably marijuana, and then led to alcohol. And eventually he became an alcoholic, which myself and my husband, who was his stepfather, didn't know that he was drinking. He hid it really well. When he finally admitted to it, that was the start of going in for treatment. And as I mentioned to you, I think at one point he went to Spectrum, but I don't know if it was during the alcoholic days. But he went to AA meetings and then went off to college, and that lasted 3 months because, as we all know, when you're in college, the fun thing is getting together with college roommates and going off campus and drinking, and that's what they did. And eventually, at 3 months, they asked him to leave, and that was devastating. And that was Johnson and Wales. So that speaks to who he wanted to be. He wanted to be a cook. He loved to cook. Francis was compassionate. He was kind. But when he was drinking or using, which again, we had no idea for the longest time, he was a whole different person. He was always helping others, always looking out for others, even when he ended up on the streets, because when he got thrown out of school, we did the tough love thing. And I didn't know any different. I didn't even know about resources that were available. I didn't even know what I didn't know. I didn't know that his issue was a disease. I had no idea. I never thought about it. I wasn't a big drinker. I know other people who have used, and I never thought about that. So he ended up out on the streets. Off and on, he came back to the house when he was doing well, but we could always tell when the behavior changed. He must have connected with someone and started, going out there and using again, because he was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That's how I describe it when I share his story. When he wasn't using, he was the kindest, most giving person that you would want. Again, loved to cook. And when he was out on the streets, I know younger people, when he was out on the streets, looked up to him. I happened to meet some just before he passed, some of those younger people, and some of them looked up to him like he was like a father. So I believe they were probably in their teens or 20s, and these are people that probably were all at one of those encampments or whatever where they stay around the city. And they really, really appreciated Francis. So he would help other people with the same thing that he struggled with, but he could not help himself. He had a daughter 2 years before he died. We thought that was going to change everything and bring him to his senses, as if that happens that easily, right? When you're addicted or using or whatever. And it doesn't happen that way. It was less than a month that she was born that he struggled maybe with all of the, concern about bringing up a daughter. And anyway, he didn't end up being able to see her for the next 2 years. And he passed when she was 2. So that was, I think, a blessing that she was brought into my life, because she was the spitting image of my son. If I didn't mention, his name is Francis. This is his picture that you see behind me. He was probably in his 30s with that picture. It's one of my favorites. So when I go to any events and I share his story, I bring that picture with me, because he was so happy there. And why? Because he wasn't using, he wasn't doing anything. He was in a good place. Where was I going with the story? I'm sorry. Yeah, so he passed when he was 2, when his daughter was 2, and I was blessed to have her in my life. We created a real bond over the next 12 years. She was always at my house, and every time she did something, she reminded me of Francis. And I just was felt like it was an extension of him. So for that, I'm bringing that because that, I think, helped me through the grief, which I still have, and I believe I'll have forever. But I think that kind of eased the pain of losing him by having, a piece of him with me so often. Now she's 14, so she does what a lot of 14-year-olds, Nana is not major part of her world anymore, and that's okay. I get it. But, that probably eased the pain of what I was going through by having her in my life. But was going to say the first 2 years after he passed, 2013 to 2015, I had no support. I didn't know about support. I didn't know about learning to cope. I didn't know about peer support. I didn't know it was such a thing. Again, while he was using, I didn't know about recovery centers. And I know he was in and out of jail sometimes because he'd be using and then get in trouble and get arrested. But he kept trying. And I'll go back again. The last 6 months of his life, my brother-in-law, who he looked up to, would take him for treatments. Suboxone, I think it is what they give you when you're going through treatment. And he took him every single week. And then there was that last day that he just decided to use. And I don't know what pushed him to that morning of Mother's Day. Sometimes I question, maybe it was intentional. Maybe he was calling me to say goodbye. I'll never know that. I don't never know that. But, he was struggling, but he was getting help for 6 months until that day, that Mother's Day, when later in the day they found him with a needle in his arm in a house with other users who he probably didn't even know. And it was a heroin overdose, if I didn't mention that early on. He had started using heroin, and he told me at one time when he came to the house that he became one of those people he didn't like or didn't respect. And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Heroin." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I never saw any signs of it when he would stop here. So I was surprised at that. Anyway, I think the heroin was brought on by some injury that he got that was very, very serious, and he was brought to the hospital. He was stabbed at some home in Worcester, and I don't know if that brought him to a stronger drug use or whatever, but I kind of tie all those things together. But again, the day that he died, I don't know if it was accidental or intentional. If he thought, I've soon learned after he died, I've been getting educated about the disease of addiction and learned so much about it. In fact, that, if you're not using for a while and then all of a sudden you use and and your body can't tolerate and your mind and body can't tolerate the amount that you use, it could have been that. It could have been, I can't do this anymore. I'll never know that. But I do know one thing. His loss brought me to what I do now. It brought me his struggle with what he did and his pain and my pain following that, brought me to my passion and my purpose. Because as I started saying, for 2 years, I had no support. I didn't know what was available until a neighbor of mine reached out and said, "Hey, I know this mom who lost her son. Would you mind talking to her?" And I go, "Oh, I talk to anyone. I'm happy to share, because everyone needs someone to talk to." And I thought I could help her. And at the same time, in my heart, knowing she'd probably help me just by sharing. We ended up meeting at a fundraiser event for this neighbor. And we started talking, and she said, "Eileen, I was at a meeting in Marlborough. Now I live in Shrewsbury, and she lives in Charlton. I was at a meeting in Marlborough, and they were doing some kind of peer support. It was an organization called GRASP. And we started talking about how beneficial that was to her. And I thought, that's wonderful. Like, there's something out there to support you." And we looked at each other. Honestly, it was like it was meant to happen. We're sitting under this tent supporting this fundraiser thing outside. And we go, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" And she goes, "Yeah." Because she said, "I wish there was something local," meaning in Central Mass, Worcester, as if Marlborough's far away, but something right here. And we started talking and decided, what, let's start our own grief group. So we decided to put it out there. We got information from that organization, GRASP, at the time. They had some guidelines or booklet or whatever, and they were somewhere in California that we got that from. She was able to, by the way, my co-facilitator of this grief group is Deb Dowd Foley. She was able to secure a location, a church in Worcester. Our Lady of the Angels Church allowed us to go in there, use their hall once a month, every Monday, and we decided to just start the group. Following that, and we started getting people coming to us. I don't even remember how we posted what we were doing. We might have dropped things at funeral homes and doctors' offices and any place we could. And then we put a few things online. And so people found us, and we were getting people and supporting each other, and it was a beautiful thing for all of us. And at the same time, we were also getting educated because we'd find out about these events that would be held workshops by, there's a woman that I always like to put her name out there, not to advertise anything, but she was amazing. Her name was Dr. Ruth Pote, Potee. And she would go out and she was educating people. I'm sure you probably heard of her, right? Again, in the circles you're in. She was amazing. I kept going to so many of her events because I thought I may not ever be able to articulate the disease of addiction. And that's when I learned it was a disease. And oh my God, how eye-awakening was that? To learn it's a disease. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to keep going and listening to her, even if it's the same story over and over, and any other events that were similar to that. But her talks were powerful if you've ever heard her. And I thought, maybe I couldn't explain it the way she does, but I'm going to make it my mission for what I've learned to go and educate other people. Those people that I say was like, I was ignorant when Frances was using. Ignorant meaning, I don't mean that to condemn myself, just because I just was not educated. And that's what it's about. Stopping the stigma, educating people about the disease of addiction, that it is a disease, and supporting people who have had this loss is so important, because the love I was feeling by educating people, sharing with them what it was about, and feeling like, okay, now they understand a little bit. And I think somehow that squashes a little bit the stigma that, we all get, that we all feel, that we all experience. So, that was just amazing. So again, and then eventually Deb and I got into these circles of networking with people, and the organization started SADOD. SADOD is support after death from overdose, and the Sun Will Rise. They partner with each other. The Sun Will Rise is a 501(c), which they support people who have had loss. So our grief group now, instead of GRASP, we are under the umbrella of the Sun Will Rise, and they support us in so many ways that I can't even list them. It's unbelievable. Brochures, events, anything that we're doing, it's just a beautiful thing. So I'm just very happy to be part of that organization. As time has gone on, SADOD, we were part of this networking of facilitators that do these monthly meetings, and SADOD offered to bring me on board. I'm retired from the corporate world, but they offered to bring me on board. And I used to always say, if I was ever going to do anything in my retirement, I would love to support people. Now, I have a bachelor's degree, which doesn't buy me anything in terms of clinical support, but I really wasn't interested in clinical support. I was interested in helping people to help people, and that meant peer support. So when this question to me came up from Franklin Cook, who is one of the founders of SADOD, he called and said, would you be interested in coming on board with us part-time? Oh my God, it's like the perfect world happened. Okay, I can do something to help people, and here I am. So now I have additional roles besides my my facilitation that I do monthly, and it's so rewarding to me. People ask how I do it. People ask, how do you manage that, because of the grief and because of being there and giving space to other people to share their grief. And for me, that's allowing me to honor the memory of my son, Francis, right here, and having his life make a difference. That is so important to me, not just his life, but all those people who have lost someone to substance related causes. So it's very gratifying. Yes, it's emotional, up and down, as I said, ebbs and flows. I'd have them with or without the support that I do. So you know what? To be able to embrace other people and give that back to them, I know what it feels like to get it. So we're helping each other. So I probably go ahead. So I know you probably want to.
I mean, we could listen to your story all day, and a couple of things I just want to reflect on, and of course, Jesse, you can as well. But I just want to honor and recognize the way that you speak about your son. I think it really just shows the world the true nature of him, and that he is not his disease of addiction. Yes, that comes with behaviors. Yes, that comes with, things that we don't like to be around, right? And may need to set boundaries around. But his true nature of being that compassionate, kind person was always with him.
Yes.
Always with him, helping others in encampments. And I think it's just part of what we need to do in these moments of pause is really honor the person, right? The person within that disease. They're a whole person with lots of pieces about them. And having a disease of addiction is only a piece of that. And I just think you do such a beautiful job. Of course, you're a mom and I'm a mom, and that, I
Get it.
all of that, but it's just, I think people need to hear that, right? And too often we talk about overdose in numbers, right? And we need to, like, there's public health statistics that are helpful for us to make macro changes in our system. Like, I get that, but every number in our overdose rates is a person, right? So one is too many.
Right.
And, we've made some progress, in the field and in society with this, but I just think you do such a beautiful job speaking about Francis, and that really that's really kind of that's struck me.
If I could just jump in for a moment too and echo
Sure.
Lisa's sentiment here, Eileen, when you were speaking about Francis, I very much heard the whole person,
Yeah.
not just what,
Thank you.
yeah, not just, what ultimately took him from you and from us, but the whole person. And as somebody in recovery, myself, as someone who does this work, I know that. I know that I'm not my disease. I know that I'm not those things that I did. But, you talk about the stigma and to educate people about, that being one facet of Francis' life, but there was so much more to him.
Yeah.
And to honor that memory, I thought that was just a beautiful way that you brought that up. And thank you for sharing Francis with us this morning here on Airing Addiction.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm really blown away by the work that you've done because, although you're getting so much back from it, it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? It's still difficult. It's still a difficult path. And, that peer support, while it does kind of, fuel your, care and remembrance of Francis and give you purpose, right? Which is a grief stage, right? So it's an important one. It's like the final one, right? It helps you get to that stage. It doesn't erase the grief. I love how you describe the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of grief. It just gives you moments, right,
Yeah.
of reward, moments of feeling like, this pain, his pain, your pain. I think I love how you describe both his pain and your pain, shifting that into purpose. And so, we see that so often in the recovery community, and it's just so beautiful to see that with supporting those that we've lost. So one of the things that I really want to talk a little bit about is, how you really just filled a gap that existed, right? And still exists in most places. There's still so much stigma in our society. There's still so much internalized stigma, not just for those with the disease of addiction, but for their families. And we don't talk about it and we don't get support from it. Like, we talked a little bit before we started this podcast about Maureen Cavanaugh, who we've had on, twice, and sharing her daughter's recovery journey and the challenges that she's had and how she's turned that into her own level of purpose. But nobody's bringing you casseroles, right? When your son has a disease of addiction.
Oh, no, not at all. I can give you one example of how horrific that moment was when he died. Not even that moment, the days following. I was working in the corporate world. My husband, that I mentioned was his stepfather, passed at 2004. He passed surprisingly from, they called it a mild arrhythmia, which I guess is essentially a heart attack, but I'm not a medical person. And he just came home, laid down, and passed. I got so much support, work support. People you talk about casseroles, people bringing you food. And, I had all family members. I had so much support. It was incredible. When Francis died, oh my God, it's like I was invisible. I like nobody said a word. And people don't want to talk to you anyway when you have a loss because they don't know how to approach you. We're not brought up to know how to approach people. Never mind when it's addiction. Like people came to the funeral, some people I knew and said, "Oh, what happened?" Of course they know what happened. Why would you do that when you're going through the line? I mean, how horrifying is that to a mom whose son just died and what happened? Like, I'm going to stand here and tell you, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off like that, but the difference was so, noticeable in that short period of time, 2004 to 2013. Really? I mean, it was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. The lack of support, even from people I worked with, when people I worked with, and they know who they are, so I don't really care. I worked in a certain team for many, many years at this organization. And then by the time Francis died, I was in another team and a team that showed less compassion. We weren't real close. I didn't share a lot about Francis because, that stigma, when he was alive, some of them didn't even know I had a son until he died. They all came to the funeral and then I go back to work and honestly, nobody says a word. Say my son's name. You say Francis's name. Don't be afraid to ask me about Francis. Let me tell you about him. And like you said, Jesse, and which one of you said it, Lisa or Jesse? That it doesn't define who he was. He was a good person. He had a big heart. Like, ask me about him. Say something about him. Share a story. I've gone to International Overdose Awareness Day. I know I'm getting off subject. The first when I started doing that, and the DA Joe Early, he has a memorial wall, which they're bringing for me at the event that's coming up, which we'll talk about, I hope. And so I remember going to that and someone would come over to me at our resource table and then they'd hear me speak to share his story at the microphone behind City Hall and they'd see his picture. And this has happened more than 1 year in a row. Someone would come over to me and go, "Is that your son?" And it's someone that's in recovery. Guess what? My son walked her to recovery. My son helped that person get recovery. He couldn't do it, but he helped someone else do it. You know what? Hearing that meant so much to me. Oh my God, I just hugged her. So that happened more than once, though. I mean, people saying that, "Oh, your son, when he was a teenager, saved somebody. She was running away from home. I guess he hit her in the cellar, and I didn't even know it." Whenever heard, like, she's saying my son's name and sharing a story about him. Don't ignore, who he was. Don't make it like he's invisible. He was never here. He'll be here forever, forever. So anyway, yeah, I go
The
off.
ripple
So
effect of the
thank
people
you.
that he has helped continues.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yes.
Continues and continues
Yes.
and will for generations, right?
Yeah.
So, that girl that he supported in the basement, that person he walked to recovery, right? Like their lives, their families' lives, they might have children who will live in a different way, like that will continue. And really the work that you're doing also has that same kind of ripple effect of helping someone, then maybe they help someone else, and
Yes.
it magnifies. It just gets bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is the ripple effect that we don't know. Right. There's been multiple people that have noticed and made the connection between Francis and said, "Your son did X, Y, and Z." But I know in my heart of hearts, Aileen, that there's more people out there that, maybe moved out of the area or just, lost connection with Francis, but he spoke something into their life at a certain time because that's what happens in recovery. You talk about peer support, you talk about, seconds and inches, just those crucial moments where, maybe his kind heart or his compassion to help others, sharing a meal with him or doing something in a practical need, resonated on. And I truly believe this because I've watched this happen in my own life and many people's lives where we don't truly know the amount of that ripple effect, the outstretch of its reach. And there's people out there right now that my hope is will listen to this and will remember Francis and say, "Oh, at this point he did this for me," because that's just the way that recovery is. It's one big caring community.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And that includes everyone, right? Those working towards recovery as Francis was at different points,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
in recovery. Like
Yeah.
those people are the same people before and after, right? And that's
Yeah.
important. And I'm so sorry for your experience, and it's so many people's experience when they've lost a loved one, and it's that stigma that is so present. And I don't know that even people recognize that that's what it is and that's what it's doing. But
You're right.
really, stigma shows itself in judgment.
Yes.
And so when people are asking for like salacious details at a funeral, that you would never do that in any other situation.
Yeah.
And why would you do it there? Because there's judgment
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
right? When you go back to work and nobody says a word, that's judgment. And I think
Yeah.
part of what we need to do in these awareness conversations is bring that to light, right?
Yeah.
Bring all of our own stigma, to awareness so that we can, recognize it, because you can't change something you don't see.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And what better way to bring that stigma to light and that judgment to light than with this upcoming event? Please, Aileen, tell us what's coming up.
Yeah. So in the past years, as I mentioned, we had vigils down on the plaza behind City Hall. And last year, someone from Polar Park, the Woosocks organization, approached me after hearing my story and asked me if they could recognize me in a pregame ceremony on the field. And I never want this to be about Aileen Lovejoy. I want it to be about all of our loved ones. So I said to them, I'm happy to go there and be recognized, but I want these people that spoke with me to come with me. And I want it to not be just about Aileen Lovejoy. I want it to be about these other people too that have shared their story. They very graciously allowed the other members that spoke with me when they were available to come and bring a few family members with them. And so while there is a woman there that is part of the organization. I forget her title, but they do community outreach. And she gave me her card and said, anything we can do to support you in the future. Oh my God, she just opened up the can. All right, I'll say the door, not a can of worms to me, because she said, anything we can do to support you in the future, please reach out. We would love to support you in the future. Well, I held on to that card and came this March. I gave her March or April. I called her and she said, Aileen, I'm so glad you called. They're putting together their calendar or something. She said, we just put September 3rd on our calendar, and I hope it's okay that we did that date, but we put it on our calendar to support you for IOAD. Oh my God. So the timing, talk about timing. I don't think this is by accident. Okay. I'll just put that out there. It was not by accident. So we've been talking ever since, and now I'm leading the effort to bring IOAD to Polar Park. So I've had discussions with them. Dr. Charles Steinberg, the president of the Woosocks, has graciously done an interview with one of our editors at SATOD. So our event, they said I could have as many tables as I want, and I want to bring this up intentionally. I thought it's so important, one, to make sure the focus stays on our loved ones. And so we'll be sharing stories in front. I asked for 4 tables, a table for SATOD and the Sun Will Rise, which is would consider ourselves one organization, if you will, to give our resources out. A table for Learn to Cope, because I think that's so important that people are aware. I was not aware when Francis was using there was such an organization. Learn to Cope, and then a table for Team Sharing, which is online grief support group that supports parents who have lost loved ones to overdose. They are now nationwide. It's in several states, this organization that does online support. So Team Sharing will be there. And then it was important to me to have EDM there, Everyday Miracles, because those people have been so supportive. And I've had 2 people that offered to share their stories last year, will do so again this year at Polar Park. And I think all those organizations combined are just the right amount of support to remember our loved ones, but put the word out there, educate people, and let them know you can go from this to this to this, and we're not doing it in that order. Hey, if you go to learn cope, you might eventually be a Saturday. We hope you're not. We hope you're not becoming part of our organization. But it's important people get that support from all of those different areas. And so we'll have 4 tables outside on the at Gate D. And so we will have a captive audience because they'll be waiting to get in and the doors open, and the doors won't be open till 5. So we'll have from 4 to 5 to share our stories. They're giving us a platform. They're giving us microphones, a podium. They're putting, we're going to have banners out there. They're putting flags on the lawn behind us. So we'll be sharing our stories there. They're also giving me tables on the concourse. So the concourse will have 3 tables because one of them will share with us in there. And then the doors will open at 5. The staff from the Woo Sox will bring us down to the field. They're allowing me to bring up to 15 people with me. I'm encouraging people to bring pictures of their loved ones. I can bring up to 15 people on the field with me, and we are going to have a pregame ceremony remembering our loved ones. That will be our vigil. That will be it. Because it'll be light out, we were going to ask people to light up their cameras with a light, but they said because it'll be light out, it probably wouldn't show the same way. I'll be giving the announcer something to say, recognizing and talking about International Overdose Awareness Day. So we'll be down there, and we're going to have a huge banner that they have agreed to hold on the field. They did it last year. It's from the team sharing organization of all children that were lost to substance-related causes. So there's many banners, by the way, and I wish I could tell you how big it is, but it's huge, and they've offered to hold it up. And so our loved ones, they're going to be up there on that Jumbotron, and we're going to show people that their lives mattered, and we'll be remembering them on this most important day. So I'm just so happy. And they've already made comments to, we didn't have the budget to do this year, but we can do it next year. Oh my God, you're committing to support us next year? Do you know how that makes us feel? Like, oh, unbelievable.
Makes you feel seen. Makes you feel
yeah. Oh my God,
like
yes.
you matter. Yeah,
Yeah,
because you
and
do matter.
Backing us, thank you. And so there is a link, a fundraising link. They offered to do that too. There's a fundraising link if you go to Polar Park or you go to SatOD.org or the Sunrise, but SatOD.org, you can see IOAD events. There is a link there that brings you to purchase tickets, and $5 of every ticket will be going to the Sunrise organization to support families who have had loss. Oh my God, they've done so much for us. I can't even tell you how beautiful. Again, that's what it's all about, right? I mean,
and I so appreciate, of course, not just because Everyday Miracles is ours, right?
Yeah.
Which it is. And I know I have a direct connection to our peer recovery support centers at Spectrum. They're one of my favorite parts of my job, for sure. But I love the combination of the levels of support that people might need. We were talking earlier about the fact that some folks might also have lost someone to the disease of addiction and still supporting somebody working towards or in recovery, and seeing the individuals in recovery, the members and the staff at Everyday Miracles really puts that face to that whole person, right? It really kind of highlights that, like the light that shines from those in recovery, yourself included, Jesse, is really amazing. And I think it's a helpful part of the process. And hopefully Athena Haddon won't be mad at me, but if folks are planning on going and they cannot afford a ticket, go to Everyday Miracles. They've bought several, they'll buy more. We will support folks who would want to be part of this event, but it's just not accessible to them. And everybody's path and story is different. And so many of us who should, right, and buy that ticket and support SatOD and the sun will rise. And so I hope that those that can do, and if you can't and still want to be part of this event, go see Athena or Michael at Everyday Miracles and see if that's something we can help you with.
I want to add this. Anyone listening to this podcast, if you end up going there, I strongly encourage you to bring a picture of your loved one and hold it up high and proud. Hold it up high and proud, whether you're sitting in those general admission tickets, seats or reserve seats or whatever it is, hold that person's picture up high because this is a day to remember them.
Yes,
I've
it
told
is.
people, yeah, I've told other people that are coming from other organizations, I had someone from a veterans organization contact me. Can we table with you? And I'm like, no, we really want to keep this focused on our loved ones. I appreciate all the work they do for veterans and I support them, but I encourage them. If they have veterans that have lost a loved one, he said, can some of our veterans who've lost a loved one join you? And I said, absolutely, anyone can attend. You can buy tickets or not buy tickets beyond but I encourage them to do this. If you're a veteran, you're from a particular organization, wear your colors. Bring a hat that identifies you as a veteran. Bring a picture of that loved one. Be there and, show that it affects all communities. It's in everyone's backyard. So they thought it was a great idea, whether they wear a hat or a badge or something to say, I'm a veteran, I've lost a loved one. They don't even have to speak. That picture and that sign of who they wear, where they come from, that speaks volumes, really.
It speaks for them.
Stop the stigma. Anyway, sorry.
What a beautiful event. What a beautiful event. Just having a resource event at Polar Park.
Yeah. Oh
for
my God.
everyone to come in and talk about smashing the stigma and talk about, a place to remember our loved ones and share their story.
And I don't know if I mentioned, Jesse and Lisa, that they chose September 3rd, even though it's Recovery Month, and we recognize that and respect that. They chose it because it's a home game. So we want that audience. We want people to hear. We want people to know. And so we were okay with September 3rd. Home game. Yeah, we're good with that. So
right. They want all the people there, right? And I think it speaks volume about the Woosofs, right? I'm a Worcester girl, so I'm always really proud of the folks. But the fact that they do so much community work, they do so much remembrance and awareness that they put this at that same level of all of the other kinds of recognitions that are out there. And I think that that's what we need, right, to reduce that stigma.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
All right. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I hope it's been a good experience for you, Aileen.
It always is. Yeah. I appreciate you inviting me.
Links that you sent, James, if there's a way to drop that on the Facebook event, if anybody's watching us live on Facebook or in any of the notes for the podcast, we'll leave that to our fabulous producer, James, to do. But you listed out, if you want to say again, if folks are listening, ways that they can access more about this event.
They can go to sadog.org, and on the upper right-hand corner, it shows IOAD events. That's International Overdose Awareness Day, obviously with just the letters, events. And it will list the events there. You select the calendar and select the date, September 3rd. There are many other events still going on, and they're all on the calendar. You'll see them highlighted in color. But go to September 3rd for the Polar Park event, and you'll see the page come up and the link will be there to buy tickets with the fundraiser donation going to the Sun Will Rise, or just buy tickets anyway. However you want to get in there and come to support us, you know what, do it. So, because granted, when they do a fundraiser, they up the ticket by $5. That's the intention of the fundraiser, right? But you know what, just be there. That's support. Be there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aileen, for sharing your story today with us and sharing Francis with us. I certainly will walk away from this conversation just really with a humble heart and just a caring spirit of, knowing that there's people like you out there that are turning the pain into passion, turning it into purpose, turning it into helping others, getting the event out at the big events at Polar Park. And, that it started just with a grassroots conversation 2 years into your journey where your neighbor said, I have this person. Do you mind talking to them?
Yeah.
And here we are today.
Now, I just want to bring up one other thing before we close. I know maybe we just have a few minutes left, but I didn't mention a lot about SATOD and the Sunrise and the support we do, but I want to encourage anyone that has lost someone to substance-related causes that we have so many different groups. We have customized those groups, whether people know it or not. If you go to the Sunrise organization, you can see the breakdown of all the groups. Some people, and you can find that on satod.org as well. But we have groups. I just want to list some because sometimes people go to a grief support group. They're not really comfortable because it's not the loss they had. So we have had so many different types of losses. There is now there are Zoom and in-person and hybrid meetings for people all throughout the month, every month. There are groups special for young adults, for substance-related suicide, for people in recovery, for faith-based people, for newly bereaved, for LGBTQ and community, for general group. Deb and my group are for general, so anyone who's had any loss, for men's group only, for moms and parents, for siblings, for partners, for multiple losses. I mean, that's how many different groups we have to support people. And we also have a program called a Peer Grief Ally program, for which I oversee. And that Peer Grief Ally program matches grievers that call in that may need one-on-one support. And all this is free. They may need one-on-one support, and we match the griever with an ally who had lived experience and some kind of guided training through SATOD that helps them support the person. And it's ongoing support for that one-on-one. That's offered to Massachusetts only, the Peer Grief Ally program. But all those other groups I mentioned, we have people calling us and coming into our Zoom meetings from all over the country and sometimes outside of the country. So it's incredible support that I didn't know. I mean, maybe they didn't exist at the time I started, but now, they're there. So people need to know about it. I just wanted to put that in there because people need that support. And sometimes they need specific groups because that's where their comfort level is to share. And to have people hold space for you in those groups is just so important and comforting. So thank you for letting me share that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I didn't know that they had all of those specific kinds of groups. And it's what we often share in recovery spaces. Like, don't just go to one grief group and say that wasn't a fit for me and then I'll never go again. Like there might be another group that will be a better fit for you. Like, try different groups, go to different support, see what works for you, because the one thing that is universal is that we could all benefit from some kind of peer support. And I love the one-on-one
Peer Grief Ally.
That's really fantastic. We've even used in our treatment programs SATOD trainings for our clinical staff because of course we lose our patients, right? And that's an impact to those in the helping field. It's not just part of the job and something that we should just be expected to be resilient for. We have to build that resilience. And one of the ways we build that resilience is getting support.
Yeah. Peer-to-peer support is so, oh my God. I mean, not that I dismiss clinical support, and people sometimes need both. So, and we have people that get both and, they find it supportive and comforting to it's there. So it's,
We're doing
a great resource
for peer support in our organization and clinical to come together. I think our title is something like 2 lenses, 1 mission.
Yep. Oh, I love that. I love that.
You need both. It's not an either or.
Right.
It's a both and.
Yep. And absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much for letting me share all this. I mean,
thank you.
Thank
you for coming on and sharing.
We're so grateful for you, for your work. You're sharing your story, sharing Francis with the world. It matters, and all of this work matters. And so I look forward to the ongoing connection with you and collaboration. And what else can we do in this ripple effect?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me anytime. Anyone can look up my name and email me. I'm available. So, and I'm always open to a conversation. I don't have set hours that I work. So, Whenever, if someone needs to talk, whether or not they reached out and got me through Saturday, I'm right there. I'm there because I feel it. I know it. I've lived it. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, this was a powerful episode. We really have so much gratitude for today, for this pause, for this remembrance and this purpose. And we welcome folks back in September to talk more about recovery and our weekly episodes on Recovery Month. But for now, I'm really just grateful for what we just did today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on Airing Addiction. Aileen, thank you so very much. Jesse, great to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for all your work, and we will see you all again soon.
All right. Take care.